So ever since Gauntlet of Fire, I feel the writers are driving Spike towards a greater destiny than anything we've seen from his character in the show thus far. He finally has a kinship with other dragons, encouraging them to see the world from a new perspective and perhaps even planting the seeds of a future alliance between dragon and pony kind. This one episode kept me intrigued nearly all the way through while potentially setting up several other stories in the future. It's a great way to get Spike out into the spotlight again. However, there is one moment that passes by so quickly and yet may be hinting at when the dragons might return. If you look closely at Spike when he first picks up the scepter, you see his eyes go much wider for a second before a mighty burst of power shoots up into the sky. And right afterwards, Spike issues a command to Garble that he must hug every dragon he sees without telling them why. Which apparently Garble has no ability to disobey, and that leads to a funny moment later on. However, when Spike hands the scepter over to Ember, we don't see anywhere near as much fanfare. Her eyes become slightly bigger for a bit, and that's it. She barks one order later on, but it doesn't seem like anyone has to follow it. So that makes me wonder, what if Spike is still the Dragon Lord? What if Spike and Ember didn't realize that simply handing over the scepter isn't enough? What if the scepter itself decides who is worthy enough to wield it? And that is why the old Dragon Lord had created a series of challenges to overcome in the first place. And what makes this work is the fact that Torch has no idea that Spike is the one who claimed the scepter. He only sees and hears that his daughter Ember wields the scepter. Even the idea that Spike wouldn't allow Garble to tell anyone about it could also be working towards this potential plot point without us realizing it. To be honest, I'd say this could be a very clever setup if the writers really wanted to bring this up in future episodes. But what sort of stories could it lead to? Well, first up, I can imagine that Torch is explaining all the powers the scepter holds within, and Ember finds that she's unable to access them, realizing later on that perhaps Spike is the only one who can. We could see Ember visiting Ponyville and the two of them trying to figure out how to transfer the power of the scepter properly. I mean, if Torch set up his challenges on what he believes makes a dragon truly worthy of being a leader, as in ferocity, strength, and determination, I can imagine Spike trying to do the same thing at first and not coming up with anything really challenging. Instead, what if Spike has to set up a challenge for Ember based on all the things he believes in most? And while Ember would have a difficult time trying to understand friendship, patience, or even household chores, I think the story could actually go a bit further when both Spike and Ember have to discover that becoming a leader the scepter can accept requires balance between the extremes Ember has endured through her whole life and the more down-to-earth lifestyle that Spike has had his whole life. With such a setup, I believe there's a lot of potential for character growth, comedy, and a worthwhile lesson that the show hasn't really addressed in this way before. Plus the fact that Ember herself has become so popular amongst the fans in such a short amount of time, you know there'd be a lot of hype for her return. But what do each of you think? Given what we've seen in Gauntlet of Fire, do you believe it's possible that Spike may actually still be the Dragon Lord even after handing off the scepter to Ember? And if so, what sort of future stories would you want to see based upon that premise? Let me know. And as always, I am Dr. Wolf, and I look forward to hearing from you.